On May 30th, 2025, one decision out of Washington sent shockwaves across North America. President Donald Trump doubled tariffs on steel and aluminum, from 25% to 50%. What followed wasn't just a trade move. It was a chain reaction that put factories, jobs, and entire supply chains at risk, on both sides of the border. And Canada was forced to respond fast. President Donald Trump said the move was about national security. Raising tariffs to 50% was meant to protect American steel and aluminum producers and push factories back home. But the impact was immediate. North American supply chains don't stop at borders, and Canada sits at the center of them. Canada produces roughly 15 billion Canadian dollars in steel each year, supporting more than 100,000 workers. Much of that steel feeds directly into U.S. factories. The warning came quickly. Catherine Cobden, head of the Canadian Steel Producers Association, said the tariffs could trigger serious damage across both economies. Aluminum faced the same threat. About 94% of Canada's aluminum exports go to the United States. That flow suddenly became more expensive overnight. Inside the U.S., critics warned the tariffs could backfire. Automakers, machinery builders, and construction firms rely on Canadian metals. Higher input costs mean higher prices for companies and consumers. What was meant to protect American industry now risked raising costs across it, and the economic engine of North America began to shake. Canada wasn't going to wait and see what broke first. Prime Minister Mark Carney moved fast. Canada announced its own response, a 25% tariff on U.S. steel and aluminum, covering nearly 30 billion Canadian dollars in goods. But this wasn't just retaliation. It was a signal. Canada made it clear this fight wasn't only about matching tariffs. It was about reducing dependence on the U.S. market altogether. The government began pushing forward major infrastructure plans, pipelines, energy projects, and new trade corridors. The goal was simple: build alternatives. Canada also accelerated efforts to deepen trade links with Asia, while keeping environmental and indigenous agreements in place. For manufacturers and auto suppliers, this meant something important. Supply routes that once ran straight through the U.S. were being redesigned. Canada was preparing for a future where American demand was no longer guaranteed. And that raised a bigger question, one that goes far beyond steel. If Canada was willing to rethink trade, what else was it willing to use? Steel and aluminum were just the opening move. Canada's real leverage sits underground. Canada is the fourth largest oil producer in the world and sends about 3.8 million barrels of crude oil to the United States every single day. That oil is worth roughly $130 billion a year. For many U.S. refineries, especially in the Midwest, Canadian heavy crude isn't optional. Their systems are built for it. There is no quick replacement. Canada never said it would cut oil exports outright. The two economies are too connected for that. But officials hinted at something else: redirection. Even shifting a portion of those oil flows toward other global buyers could tighten U.S. fuel supply and drive prices higher. Analysts warned that fuel disruptions alone could drain $30 to $35 billion a year from the U.S. economy. This wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. North America's energy system runs on shared pipes, and Canada controls a critical valve. And Canada was already building a way to turn it. Canada's long-term plan comes into focus with one project: the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. This project boosts capacity from 300,000 barrels per day to nearly 890,000 barrels per day, moving oil directly to Canada's Pacific coast. From there, it reaches Asia, China, India, other fast-growing energy markets. In early 2025, Canadian oil shipments through Pacific ports surged. China alone imported more than 7 million barrels in a single month, becoming one of Canada's top buyers. This wasn't accidental. It was strategic. By opening new routes, Canada reduced its exposure to sudden U.S. policy shifts. For Canada's economy, including manufacturing and autos, this meant stability. If one market closed, another stayed open. The pipeline wasn't just about oil, it was about independence. And as these new lanes opened west, pressure quietly built south of the border. Because the deeper Canada diversified, the less leverage Washington had. As tariffs tightened, the damage spread quietly. Canadian manufacturers, from auto parts suppliers to metal fabricators, faced shrinking access to the U.S. market. At the same time, American companies felt the pressure from the other side. U.S. automakers and industrial firms depend on Canadian steel, aluminum, and energy. When costs rise or supply slows, production follows. Assembly lines don't pause gracefully. They stall. Even small disruptions ripple through jobs, prices, and delivery times. This isn't theory. North American manufacturing works like a single machine. When one component fails, the entire system suffers. Canada's strategy, investing in infrastructure and expanding trade routes, showed long-term planning. The United States, meanwhile, faced short-term consequences. And with the 2026 elections approaching, the economic impact of tariffs moved from factory floors into political debate. What began as a protectionist move was now a shared economic test. The trade clash between the United States and Canada became something bigger than steel or aluminum. It turned into a stress test of how integrated North America truly is. Canada responded with speed, structure, and alternatives. Tariffs, energy leverage, and new global connections. The U.S. response reshaped costs at home and shifted long-standing trade dynamics. This isn't just about metal or oil. It's about supply chains, shared industries, and how economic power is used in a connected world. So now the question turns to you. How do you think Canada's new trade routes and energy strategy will affect U.S. manufacturing? Will tariffs strengthen domestic production or push allies to build workarounds faster? And in the long run, does economic pressure create resilience or division? Share your thoughts in the comments.